Indifference curve analysis. What is an indifference curve? It is a curve showing the different combinations of two goods yielding the same total satisfaction. Now, indifference curve was given by ordinalists as an alternative approach to the utility analysis of Marshall. Now, cardinal utility concept of Marshall was criticized for making unrealistic assumptions. We all know that Marshall's approach makes use of cardinal approach where utility can be measured. But in this indifference curve approach, utility cannot be measured, but it is possible to show the preferences of the consumers while choosing between different commodities. Now, every consumer possesses a definite scale of preference for goods and services. Now, scale of preference means the order of preference of a consumer. Let us assume that a consumer has to make a choice when he goes to the market to buy fruits among apples, mangoes, bananas and oranges. Now he has a definite scale of preferences, the order of preferences according to his liking. Now this order is known as the scale of preference. Now sometimes what happens is we have different combination of goods. Now one combination may give us more utility or more satisfaction than the other. So the consumer may prefer one combination to the other. Sometimes it so happens that all the combinations may give him the same satisfaction, and here is indifferent. So indifference curve is that curve where all the combination gives you the same satisfaction. So the consumer is indifferent because all the combination gives him the same satisfaction, and that is why the IC curve is known as an equal satisfaction curve. Now what are the assumptions? There are different assumptions of indifference curve. Every consumer has a definite scale of preference. Now I may like oranges, apples and bananas. Consumer B may like bananas, oranges and apples. So every consumer has a definite scale of preference, number one. Number two, all the consumers possess full knowledge about the price of the goods and the market conditions. Third is rational and tries to maximize satisfaction. A consumer needs to be rational because he wants to maximize satisfaction. The prices of different goods and services are already given, so the consumer knows the prices of these goods. Income of the consumer is constant, and let us assume he spends his entire income on the combination he chooses. Now he is interested to buy different combination of goods, not only single commodity. Now consumer possesses an indifference map which shows his scale of preference. Now before drawing an indifference curve, you have to have an indifference schedule. Only if you have an indifference schedule, you can obtain IC curve on the basis of this indifference schedule. Now what is this indifference schedule? It is a numerical statement. It is a list of various combinations of two commodities which gives the consumer the same satisfaction. Now in the graph and in the table that you see, IC schedule, a table, shows the various combinations of two goods, oranges and apples. We have given oranges as X and apples as Y. And these combinations we have A, B, C, D, E. Combination A shows that the consumer buys one orange and 20 apples, that is for, just assume, and E combination, he buys 5 oranges and 6 apples. And in between there are different combination B, C, D, E. So the consumer can choose any of these combinations, is indifferent because all these combinations gives him the same satisfaction. Now when you plot these data on a graph, you get an IC schedule, or you get an IC curve. Now IC curve is the figure which shows downward sloping curve, and this downward sloping curve shows the different combination which gives the consumer the same satisfaction. Now why is the IC curve downward sloping? It is because of the marginal rate of substitution. Now indifference curve is based on marginal rate of substitution. What is marginal rate of substitution? It refers to the way at which an individual will exchange one commodity for another. The aim of substitution is what? Why? Because to have the same level of satisfaction. That is why we said A, B, C, D, E gives the consumer the same level of satisfaction, because this is based on marginal rate of substitution. Now, if a consumer has commodities X and Y, the marginal rate of substitution of commodity X is equal to the commodity Y the consumer is willing to substitute to have one more unit of X. That is why the marginal rate of substitution must always be negative. Now, you can see this in the table, that in combination B, to get an extra unit of X, you are sacrificing or substituting 5 units of Y. When you go to combination E, for an extra unit of X, you are sacrificing 2 units of Y. So when you see commodity X increases, the commodity Y decreases. And this is the reason why you get the same level of satisfaction. Now, this marginal rate of substitution is the reason why the diminishing indifference curve is a downward sloping curve. Now, there are 5 properties of indifference curve: negative slope, convexity, ordinality, independence, and disproportionality. The first property is negative slope. Now, every indifference curve has a negative slope. That is why I see slopes negatively or downwards from left to right. Why? Because if you want to have more of X, you have to have less of Y, and also because of the diminishing marginal rate of substitution, which you can see in the figure. Now, indifference curve cannot be an upward sloping curve, it cannot be an horizontal straight line, it cannot be a vertical straight line. It has to be a downward sloping curve because of the marginal rate of substitution. Second one is convexity. Indifference curve is always convex to the origin of axis. This property is also derived from the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. Remember, marginal rate of substitution neither increases nor remains constant but decreases, and that's the reason why IC curve is a negative slope. Third one is ordinality. Every indifference curve to the right represents a higher level of satisfaction. Now, here you see many indifference curve on the same graph. It is called as indifference map. Now, all of us would like to buy more of both the goods, right? So, if a consumer wants to choose IC4, definitely he can have more of commodity X and more of commodity Y. So, every indifference curve to the right gives a higher level of satisfaction. That is, IC4 gives more satisfaction than IC3, IC2 and IC1. Next one is fifth one, disproportionality. Indifference curve need not be parallel to each other. This is due to 2 reasons. IC, first of all, we do not measure utility in this indifference curve analysis, and second is the rate of substitution need not be the same in all IC schedule. So, on an indifference map, you will see the IC curves need not be equal. The next property is independence. Indifference curve cannot intersect with each other because they are different indifference curves, and I told you each indifference curve represents one utility and different indifferent curves represents different utilities. Now, if you see in this figure, we see 2 indifference curves intersect each other, IC1 and IC2. Now, on IC1 we have 2 points A and C. So, A is equal to C because it gives you the same satisfaction. On IC2 we see B and C. B is equal to C because they are on the same IC curve IC2, it has to give you the same satisfaction. So, because A is equal to C and B is equal to C, definitely A should be equal to B. But A is not equal to B because A is on IC1 and B is on IC2 and they give you different levels of satisfaction. So, once again I will tell you the 5 properties of indifference curve: negative slope, convexity, ordinality, independence and disproportionality. So indifference curve is a curve which shows a different combination of two goods which gives you the same satisfaction, and it is based on diminishing marginal rate of substitution, and there are 5 properties of indifference curve. Thank you.